Hey everyone, it is late at night and I am Norman, and it is time once again for some watch news. So let us begin. And first up, we have an article that I found on Hodinkee. And this article was on the watches and cars of Briggs Cunningham. And I feel like Briggs is a perfect name for a car enthusiast. It just sounds right. Now, I am not a car enthusiast, so I'm probably gonna botch one or two of these car names. I apologize in advance. So first off, the author of this article points out that Briggs Cunningham was not born poor. Cunningham's father, Briggs Sr., would use this fortune to invest in the earliest stages of a small floating soap company started by two men who claimed their product would revolutionize the act of bathing. Their names were William Proctor and James Gamble. So yes, Cunningham was born wealthy, but that doesn't mean that he was born lazy. Cunningham skippered the 1958 America's Cup team and won. He invented a system of rigging for sailboats that's still used today and still named after him. And this is the Wikipedia write-up of that. In sailing, a Cunningham, or Cunningham's eye, is a type of downhaul used on a Bermuda-rigged sailboat to change the shape of a sail. It is named after its inventor, Briggs Cunningham, a victorious America's Cup skipper and yacht builder. The Cunningham differs from a typical downhaul in the way that it attaches to the sail. The system usually consists of a line which is secured at one end to the mast or boom, below the foot of the mainsail. It is then passed through a kringle in the luff of the sail, near the foot, but above the tack, and then led down the other side to a fitting on the mast, boom, or on the deck. So yeah, Briggs built his own yachts and powerboats. He was the owner of the first Ferrari in America, and the first Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing ever. He built his own Le Mans qualifying cars, and he happened to have been a very serious watch buyer, commissioning two of the most beautiful and functional watches to come out of the 1950s. He owned 3 Pateks in stainless steel, the reference 565 Breguet, and this sold for 100,000 Swiss francs at Philips Geneva in 2015. And that is a beautiful watch. I like the hands on it and the hour markers, the typeface that was used for those. The case is curving and elegant, and I believe that sub-seconds dial was yellow when it was produced, and it looks like the dial was cream originally as well, but tough to say if that isn't just from aging. And then there's the reference 1463 chronograph. It has a black luminous dial, and it is currently on offer for $1.5 million. Certainly a direct commission, a reference 1463 chronograph, made unique by its black dial with luminous markers and hands. The watch, again in stainless steel, has achieved mythical status since first appearing on the market and remaining one of just 2 black dial 1463s ever to be discovered. And here's a team driver with a black dial Patek Philippe chronograph. There is also the reference 1526 perpetual calendar, and this sold for $3,956,159 at Christie's Geneva in 2008. Reference 1526, otherwise known as Patek's first serially produced perpetual, but it's steel. And what's more is that this 1526 is different from other 1526s with a larger, thicker case and wider lugs. It is just one of 2 perpetual calendars to be made in steel, and the Arabic markers are covered in black lacquer. And some of the cars that he owned. This is the 1948 Ferrari Tipo 166 Spider Corsa, and this was the first Ferrari in America. That's a pretty fun looking car. Then there's the crazy looking 1950 Cadillac Le Monstre, the first American car at Le Mans. And yeah, that's wild looking. There's the Cunningham C1, and the 1954 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL, the first gull wing ever. And that is a super cool looking car. Next up we have an article that I found on Revolution Watches, and this is about reviving a dead brand, Dennison. And to be honest, these news videos, it's not so much that I'm talking about news, but I'm talking about brands and watches that are news to me. And this is one of them. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, you should subscribe to the channel. Be sure to hit the notifications so that you don't miss anything. And if you're enjoying this video, hit that thumbs up. You know, do all the YouTube things. The author of this article begins with a pondering of the past. One of the most charming and fascinating aspects of the broader watch world is the boundless history of the industry and the field at large. Much like a romantic and fascinating library with rows upon rows of towering shelves, stacked with dusty tomes, there are countless examples of innovators, visionaries, whose stories have yet to be told. In many instances, these stories only come to light once they are resurrected by the ambitions of a watch brand. And Dennison Watch Company is doing that very thing with a brand that was founded by Aaron Lufkin Dennison. The company was formed in 1874, and look at the drawing of that piece. Yeah, that looks pretty good. The watches that we're looking at tonight are a rounded square design. So they're extremely minimal. There are no markers on the dial, just the branding down by the 5 o'clock, or what would be the 5 o'clock if there was a 5 o'clock marker. The hands are kind of arrow-ish, sort of. I have to say I'm not a huge fan of those hands. If they just went with slender leaf hands, I feel like that would be cool. But the dials on these are just wild. There are a couple that look like a starry night. The black dial looks really good on these. But of course I'm a huge black dial fan, so yeah. And look at some of these other dials. The green sunray, the tiger's eye. Absolutely amazing looking. I kind of like the watch shape. It'd be interesting to see one of these in person and to put it on the wrist, because, yeah, never quite seen anything like that in person. So the sunray dials retail for $490. The stone dials retail for $690. So they're not super expensive. It definitely could be worse. The case size on these is 37 millimeters. They are quartz, which is interesting. The movement inside these watches is the Swiss Ronda Quartz 1032-1. The last article I have comes to us from Worn & Wound. And I've heard this brand pronounced man, so I'm going with that. This is a Maen IFL collaboration. So apparently IFL is a brand that's a master of the custom dial. This brand was new to me. And when we're done talking about this particular piece, I have to show you two other collaborations that Maen has done that I think are much cooler. But this particular piece that's discussed in this article is the Graffiti watch. And the idea here was to celebrate the culture of New York City. So the dial is completely covered in graffiti, and amongst this graffiti you can find the names Manhattan, Queens, Wall Street, and then there's NYC on there. I feel like this isn't overly compelling as graffiti, but it's a bright, colorful dial, kind of whimsical looking, And the Man Manhattan watches are really cool. But I'm kind of a sucker for that design, sort of Royal Oakish, integrated bracelet kind of stuff. Yeah. Not gonna lie, I've considered a Manhattan in the past. The case size on these watches is 37 millimeters, and inside them is a Sellita SW200. It sounds like they're nice and thin with a case height of 9.3 millimeters, and they just look great on wrist shots. I would love to see one of these in person, but these other two collaborations that were mentioned in this article are so much better. So Worn & Wound themselves did a collaboration with Maen, and look at the design that they came up with. Those dials look so great. I like how they handled the color of the dials, how they fade to that lighter color. I like the prominent markers at 12, 3, 6, and 9. And I feel like adding that circular element to the dial on a watch that's fairly square is great. It just looks so good. The handset on these is brilliant. Just great looking watches. I love that red dial. Maen also collaborated with Second and created the Manhattan Project watch. And these watches are just my kind of fun. Much more so than the Graffiti. I think these are just brilliant. There's a radiation symbol smack dab in the middle that sits on top of where the hands connect to their post. So the hands kind of come out from behind it. I love the touch of yellow on the dial where it says Manhattan Project. And look at the texture on that dial. Wow. So this whole watch is basically silver, and those two touches of yellow on it just pop all the more because of that. And if you look at the side shot, you can see how nice and thin these pieces are. On the case back is the Oppenheimer quote. And when it's dim and those hands are glowing, that is so fitting. It just looks like they're radioactive. Absolutely brilliant design. So there you have it. You are now caught up on watch news. Thanks for watching.